The Eagles have a tough test ahead of them on Monday Night Football as they face off against Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and the Minnesota Vikings. I'll break down the matchup and predict a winner. Also, the Phillies are stumbling at the wrong time, with the Padres and Brewers suddenly breathing down their neck. What do they need to do to turn this around? This episode of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel starts right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Hirsch, and now, guys, before we get into this video, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. You can also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. Alright, so let's start out this episode by talking about the Birds as the now 1-0 Eagles set to face off against the Minnesota Vikings, also 1-0, tomorrow on Monday Night Football. This is certainly going to be a really good matchup and a really tough matchup as well for the Birds, as they're going to have to contain this high-powered Minnesota Vikings offense, which includes Kirk Cousins, of course, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and all those other weapons that they've got on offense. It's going to be a really tough game for this team. I'm going to be really interested to see how they decide to defend Justin Jefferson. I'm sure Darius Slay is going to be on him most of the night, but we'll see kind of how Minnesota adjusts to that, and Darius Slay is certainly going to have his hands full tomorrow night with Justin Jefferson. Another reason I'm very concerned about this game is just that Justin Jefferson, of course, was drafted one spot below Jalen Reagor. Everybody thought, I think even Justin Jefferson earlier this week admitted that he thought that the Eagles were going to draft him in 2020. The Eagles go with Jalen Reagor instead, leaving Justin Jefferson to go to Minnesota. And we kind of saw the same thing a couple years ago with DK Metcalf, where I think he was passed up on by the Eagles in the second round. The Eagles ended up going with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and DK Metcalf came into Philly and absolutely balled out. Very afraid kind of what Justin Jefferson kind of has on his mind this week. He's got a revenge game potentially on his mind, considering the fact the Eagles passed up on him for Jalen Reagor, who, of course, is now with Minnesota because of how poorly he played here. So yeah, very concerned about how Justin Jefferson is going to play and how much revenge he does have on his mind for this game. And another guy with revenge on his mind supposedly for this game is Jalen Reagor, who is now on the Vikings and returning punts for them. So good for him. Maybe he'll get more than 10 yards on a punt return. I don't know. I guess that would probably qualify as a pretty good revenge game for him, considering the fact he wasn't really even used in Week 1, the Vikings' Week 1 win over the Packers, 23-7. He was not really even used as a wide receiver. Kirk Cousins, in that game against Minnesota, or against Green Bay, went 23 for 32 for 277 yards. A lot of people think that Kirk Cousins is a dark horse MVP candidate for the season, and with the receivers that he has, I think that he could be in consideration for the MVP because he's got all these wide receivers. He goes 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, only sacked 1 time. His QB rating, not that good, 77.2. But all in all, a very good game for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. And the Eagles are going to have their hands full. And if they play like they did in Detroit Week 1, their defense, they're not going to be able to win this game. They gave up, of course, the 35 points to the Vikings offense, or to the Lions offense last week. As their run defense looked just in shambles. DeAndre Swift ran all over us. And I'm not super concerned about this because we do have a very high-powered and talented defense. And this was a lot of these guys' first time ever playing with each other. We, of course, overhauled our linebacker and our secondary position this offseason. And then Brandon Graham up front, as well as Jordan Davis. Of course, this was Jordan Davis' first game as an Eagle and Brandon Graham's first game since Week 2 of last season. So I'm not super concerned about the run defense just because I think that that takes a little bit of time and communication to develop. And with a lot of new guys on that defense, I think it's going to take a couple of weeks. Of course, maybe if by the end of the month, by the end of Week 3 or 4, that the run defense still looks like they did last week, then we do have a pretty big problem on our hands. But the reason that I'm not super concerned about that is because our passing defense was really good last week. We held Jared Goff. We kept him in check pretty much. Of course, the Lions don't really have that many good wide receivers, and Jared Goff isn't an elite quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but still really good to see that their pass defense was much better than the run defense, considering the fact how bad that was. Crossing over a little bit now to the Eagles' offense. Of course, A.J. Brown, 10 receptions and 155 yards in his Eagles debut. A very good showing for him. Of course, you think he's going to be, as we all expected, a fan favorite here in Philadelphia. Devonte Smith, however, our fan favorite from last season, never had a single reception. I'm not super concerned just because we do have such a deep and talented wide receiver group that there are going to be some days where A.J. Brown gets 155 yards and Devonte Smith doesn't really get much. There are going to be days where Devonte Smith gets maybe 100, 155 yards and A.J. Brown doesn't get much. It's the glory and the beauty of having a very talented wide receiver core is that one guy, one of the top guys, could literally have no receptions and your offense still puts up 38 points. It's really good to see, and I do think that Devonte Smith is going to be used more this week. I don't really think that it was anything personal or anything like that last week. I just think that A.J. Brown was the one who was open more often, and that's where Jalen Hurts was going. So yeah, I think that Devonte Smith is going to be utilized a lot more tomorrow night on Monday Night Football. I'm not super concerned about that at all. Something that is a little bit more concerning is Jalen Hurts. His decision making, especially in the pocket. He had 14 rushing attempts last week, and there were some times when he had to scramble, but then there were other times when the pocket wasn't even really breaking down at all. The offensive line was giving him time, and he would kind of just roll out and not let these really talented wide receivers that I just mentioned really give them a chance to get open. I think that Jalen Hurts needs to do a better job of staying in the pocket because that's where more of your completions are going to be. And scramble when you need to, because of course Jalen Hurts is a very good scrambling quarterback, is a very good running quarterback. But I just think that he needs to learn to stay in the pocket more and to be able to and really just trust these wide receivers and allow them to get open. So now I do think that this game tomorrow night, by the way, the game is Monday Night Football exclusively on ABC at 8:15. ESPN's going to carry another game, so exclusively on ABC tomorrow for the Eagles and the Vikings. And I do think that this game is going to be a very high-powered offense game. I think it's probably going to be a shootout. And earlier, when I made my first video, actually, and I predicted all the Eagles scores, I predicted that the Eagles would win this game against the Vikings. Right now, I'm not too sure. I could really see it going either way. However, I am going to pick against the Eagles in this game. I will say the Vikings win it 34-30. I can definitely see the Eagles winning this game. I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's a close game the entire way throughout. I'm just not sure if their defense is going to be able to get it done against this high-powered Vikings offense. So yeah, I'll say 34-30 Minnesota. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my score prediction for Week 2. All right, switching gears now into the Phillies, who are coming off of a 4-3 week. However, those 3 losses have all come in their last 3 games, and this team is starting to stumble at a very, very bad time, and the Brewers and Padres, the 2 teams behind us in the standings, are both getting hot right now. Phillies have lost 3 straight. Meanwhile, San Diego and Milwaukee have both won their last 2 games to pull the Padres to within a half game of the Phillies for the second wild card spot, and the Brewers now just 2 games behind the Phillies. I will note that the Phillies do hold the tiebreaker over both of those teams. However, with now just 17 games remaining, it is very concerning to see that the Phillies are not getting it done, and they're not getting it done on both sides of the ball. The starters haven't been that bad. It's the bullpen that has kind of imploded recently. Sir Anthony Dominguez, of course, surrendering 5 earned runs. 5 earned runs in that loss to the Braves on Friday night, in which the Phillies gave up 6 runs in the 8th inning en route to losing that game 7-2. Phillies would then lose again yesterday 4-3. They got themselves in a hole early, 4-0. Couldn't climb out of it, losing 4-3. And so let's take a look at the Phillies week in review. They did start out the week red hot, continuing their 5-game win streak against the Nationals, winning on Saturday night and eventually Sunday night after that really long rain delay, winning 8-5 Saturday, 7-5 Sunday. They were then off Monday, took the first 2 down in Miami, 2-1 and 6-1, but then lost on Roberto Clemente Day on Thursday, 5-3 to the Marlins, and then of course the 7-2 loss and the 4-3 loss against the Braves now in this series. And I think this is something the Phillies have really need to clean up right now, and that's this. Whenever they lose whenever they lose the last game of a series against a pretty poor team, they follow it up with a bunch of losses. We saw it happen earlier in the month when they lost to the Pirates to end their 6-game win streak, and then went out west and stunk it up, going 1-5. But yeah, they need to figure this out, and they need to figure this out now. Fortunately, they are getting some reinforcements back. Zach Wheeler is expected to pitch Wednesday back in Philadelphia against Toronto. However, with the Phillies' injury situation, it seems to be one step forward, two steps back, as Nick Castellanos had to be shut down for a little bit with that oblique injury that he sustained in San Francisco, and Mundo Sosa was placed on the 10-day IL with a grade 2 right hamstring strain that he suffered in that final game in Miami, and his regular season is most likely over because of that. Rhys Hoskins was hit on the hand in that game in Miami as well. He left the game and is yet to return to the Phillies lineup. He actually left on Wednesday, and he has not returned to the Phillies lineup ever since. And there is concern that he may miss today's game as well. And it's kind of play it by ear right now. Those hand injuries have just ravaged the Phillies this season, and Rhys Hoskins is the latest victim of that. So yeah, it's just one step forward, two steps back right now, and the Phillies are going to need to turn this around this week. They have a very tough week ahead, as we're going to take a look at that right now. They're going to finish up the series in Atlanta today at 1:35. You can find that game on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Tomorrow, fortunately, they do have a day off for two reasons. One, I think they need a day off, and two, it makes it easier for all of us to decide which game we're watching, the Phillies or the Eagles, and there's only an Eagles game on. They'll then be back in action on Tuesday to kick off a two-game series against the Blue Jays. Both games are at 6:45 and on NBC Sports Philadelphia. That's Tuesday, Wednesday. So a pretty good series there, as Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette are all going to be coming to Philadelphia. And then they're back at it against the Atlanta Braves for 4, starting on Thursday at 7:15. It's baseball night in America. That game is exclusively on Fox. They're back on NBC Sports Philadelphia for the next 3 games. Friday's at 7:05, Saturday is at 4:05, and then Fan Appreciation Day, the final home game of the regular season, is next Sunday at 1:05. Phillies are going to need to find some way, somehow, to turn this around, and it's going to be really tough to start that today. I think they're going to have to, though, to avoid a sweep, of course. But it's going to be very tough today. Bailey Falter pitching for the Phillies in today's game against the Braves. He's been excellent. I do think that he's going to be excellent again today. I think he holds the Braves. The problem is we're facing mini Jacob deGrom, as I like to call him, and Spencer Strider, just because his whole mannerisms and four-seam fastball slider guy, just like deGrom is. And if he's held the Phillies in check, he's held a lot of teams in check this year. I think it's really between him and his teammate Michael Harris II for Rookie of the Year. And so the Phillies are going to have to find some way, somehow, to solve him, considering the fact that they're going to face him today, and then they're going to face him again on Friday in Philadelphia, at least the way that it sets up right now. Another thing that has really contributed to this poor Philly stretch is the poor situational hitting, which seems to have plagued the Phillies this entire month. I mean, if you look at some of these games, they had chances to add on in Atlanta. They had that runner on third with nobody out in Miami on Thursday, couldn't score there, and then Miami came right back and ended up scoring first and win that game 5-3. Then, of course, last night as well, Phillies with a bunch of chances, especially late in games. They scored 1 run in the 5th, 7th, and 8th last night. However, it could have been a lot better for us. Bryce Harper, of course, lining out to Ronald Acuna Jr., made a heck of a catch down in right field last night with base loaded in the 5th inning. At that point, the Phillies were down 4-1. But they also had chances. They had a chance in the 8th inning. They scored 1 run in that inning, but they had a chance to score more. They got a leadoff double by Bryce Harper. JT Realmuto stepped up, flew out to left field. You just don't like to see that. Of course, you're not going to get a hit every time, but one of your better RBI guys steps up to the plate with a runner on second to lead off an inning. You kind of, in a game like this, you kind of expect him to be able to get something done, at least get him over. Bryce Harper did end up scoring on a single by Bryson Stott. But then the Phillies get shut. They only score the 1 run there, and the 8th gets shut down 9th by Kenley Jansen, lose 4-3. So yeah, Phillies are going to really need to clean up this situational hitting right now, because that is a quality of playoff teams. Playoff teams are able to hit well in the clutch and hit well situationally, and right now the Phillies have not done either of that over their last handful of games. And I did mention earlier, the Padres now just a half game behind the Phillies for the second wildcard spot. Brewers breathing down our necks as well at 2 games back. Fangraphs does give the Phillies an over 85% chance to make the playoffs. I am starting to get a little concerned about this. If you asked me this 10 days ago, I would have said, oh yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to roll right into it. But right now, it's very concerning to see where they're at. You want to see your lead increasing right now. You do not want to see it decreasing. The Phillies' magic number stands at 15. That's combined Phillies wins and Brewers losses at total 15 would get them into the playoffs. Again, Fangraphs still giving the Brewers an under 37% chance to make the playoffs. So they're still siding with the Phillies heavily. Phillies do, of course, hold that tiebreaker over the Brewers, so the 2-game lead is technically a 3-game lead because of that, but they're going to need to turn it around right now. The Brewers have taken the first 2 games of their series this weekend against the Yankees, so they're proving that they could beat good teams, while we're kind of proving that we struggle against them. And of course, if the season ended today, the Phillies would face off against the Braves in the wild card round in the playoffs. And I'm not too sure how much I would like that. I think eventually, the way they've played against the Braves these last 2 games, when it's all said and done at the end of the season, I'd kind of rather us be in that 3rd wild card spot and have to face St. Louis, just because of how well the Braves are playing against us right now. And they're going to play against us again. 4 games. We're going to see how that goes next weekend. But I think at this point, I'd rather play St. Louis. But right now, you need to focus just on getting in. I'd rather get in and play the Braves than not get in at all, of course. This team needs to end their playoff drought. They need to end it this season. And they're going to need to turn it around and start cleaning up a lot of things quickly. Alright, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. Again, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. I usually post every Saturday, however, posting Sunday today. You could also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. You could also look me up. It's at Philly Sports Spot. That's PhillyllySportSpot. So just one S between sport and spot. And until Saturday, let's go Eagles. Let's get a win tomorrow night, Monday Night Football. And come on, Phillies, got to turn this around right now.